All right, welcome to Nice Talk. We're very excited to bring you this second episode of our monthly talk show where we bring in expert commentary from around the world of crypto. This is a live event, so don't forget to drop questions in the YouTube chat, and we'll be looking forward to answering them at the end of the episode today. We've assembled the NiceHash team of Joe and Marco again today for today's broadcast. But we also have joining us a very special guest. So we have Tron Black, the lead developer for Ravencoin. So I want to bring Tron in here real quick and give us a brief synopsis as to what is the Ravencoin project.
Hello. Oh, sure. Yeah. Many of you probably heard about Ravencoin. It was started in the project started being built in about 2017. Launched on Bitcoin's 9th birthday on January 3rd of 2018. It's code fork of Bitcoin, but not a chain fork. So, and then we that launched. Was able to be mined via X16R, which was a rotating set of algorithms from the ones that are in Dash. There's 11. There's so you've probably heard of X11, X13, X15. It was 16 rotating algorithms, and then there was some rumors of ASIC, so we tweaked it, and that was X16R v2. And then after that, they modified the ASICs a little bit to do some of the V2 stuff in firmware. And one of our goals is to keep this. The goal isn't necessarily to keep ASICs out. The goal is to make it like so that anybody can flip on a computer and mine some and have some. So very very decentralized, very democratized. And so we tweaked the algorithm again. Used a derivative of NiceHash, which is KawPow. Used a derivative of that, fixed some things, and made KawPow. So that's what it currently runs under. And it uses pretty much all of a video card. And so to make an ASIC, the ASIC would look a lot like a video card.
Okay. Awesome. So now I'm going to bring in the rest of the NiceHash team here. So we wanted to talk really kind of, it seemed like the deep dive into Ravencoin, one of the main things that Ravencoin really is about is the transfer of ownership. So can you tell us a little bit more about how Ravencoin creates and transfers ownership of assets?
Absolutely. So yeah, we launched it when it launched. It didn't have asset support, but about 11 months into the project, in fact, on November 5th of 2018, the ability to create your own asset was activated on top of it. It was always the original goal. We just kind of needed that platform to get started. So one of the very very unique things about it is that you can create your own assets with a unique name. So if you come up with a name, it's like a DNS like registry, right? So you pick a name, you have to kind of ask the network, is this name available? If it is, you can secure it. Once you have that, you can create sub assets or other tokens underneath that asset. Those are a little less expensive to create. And then it also creates what's called, we call unique assets, because we're kind of pre NFTs, but now that's what's being used as NFTs. And the reason that's important is you can only have one of them, like guaranteed unique one has a hashtag in the middle of the name, and guaranteed unique one. People are using that and attaching data, art, movies, 3D spinning things, all kinds of stuff. So there's a whole ecosystem of NFTs being built on Ravencoin. They're much easier and much less expensive to build on Ravencoin. And so there's the kind of the equivalent of OpenSea over at ravenbay.com. And so there's tons of NFTs there, and they've attached, like I said, there's all kinds of things being connected to the token. The tokens move like Bitcoin. It's the UTXO model, which means you kind of get a chain or history of all the assets that move. Once you create an asset or so an asset, basically, just to simplify, it's a token that you own. You create this token with a unique name. You get one from 21 billion. You choose, doesn't cost you any more to make more of them, but you decide how many there are. You decide whether it's reissuable, meaning you as the owner or issuer could make more of them. And then you can attach whatever data you want through IPFS. So you upload a file or a folder full of files, and then just put that identifier string, it's called a content identifier or hash of the content, and that's how the data is found. So once you embed that connect it to your asset, to your token, then that data can't change, because if the data changed, then it wouldn't be referenced by that hash that you'd put in the blockchain. So the data isn't stored in chain. So we're not stuffing like 4K movies into the Ravencoin blockchain. Those are going in IPFS. With IPFS, if you're familiar with it, somebody has to hold the file, pin it, but then it's kind of a content delivery network, and you can find that file with lots of different ways through IPFS. And Cloudflare has an IPFS gateway and things like that. So it's been super popular for NFTs. It's also great for security tokens, for gift cards. Somebody's tokenized wine that isn't ready to drink yet, so still in the barrels. And so you have this token that represents bottles of wine, but in the future, right, when it's ready, when it's aged.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of different things that people have done. There's over 30,000 different token names that have been issued and created. All of them, have some cost, right? You have to do 500 Raven, which today is roughly $50 to create your tokens, right? However many you want, but one token, one
Mm-hmm.
root token name. So lots of people have done that, and they're using them for different things. And sometimes we get to know what that is, and sometimes it's a permissionless network. So a lot of people are just using it without talking to anybody about it.
Yeah, I've seen people are using it to sell real estate as well.
That's
So
right.
this is a
Yeah,
really interesting use case for the blockchain technology.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
Maybe one day this will become the standard. It could be very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you think that's something that's in the near future, or do you think this is like a long-term goal here?
So it's happening now. In fact, I literally flew in last night from Austin, where I was at a digital asset conference, where they are, there's all the ecosystem for tokenizing real estate, land, putting it on a secondary market. All the alternative trading system executives were there talking about, and so I went there to do a kind of a throwdown on which platform is the best token to tokenize these digital securities. Because if you're doing like buildings or something where someone has to manage it, and there's an expectation of profit, and they're paying dividends, or that paying the rent out, then it's a security, so you have to kind of follow all the securities laws. But then you have other things which are like fractionalized art that you don't necessarily need to, right? It's just artwork. And so if it's not wrapped in sort of a legal layer like an LLC or something like that, then you can tokenize art, cars, valuable objects, and tokenize those to do fractional ownership of those things.
What made you focus on asset transfer with Ravencoin?
So actually, so I credit Bruce Fenton for this. So Bruce Fenton, it was his brainchild. So this wasn't like my idea. I got involved pretty early. Bruce Fenton was a stockbroker, kind of understood tokenization, or understood stocks and bonds and things like that. And so he was partnered up with Overstock or Medici Ventures and T0, and so needed a platform that was easier to use than the ones that were there. And so it was kind of his idea, and he started having it developed by some developers out of the country, and that didn't work out. And he talked to Patrick Byrne, CEO of Overstock, and Patrick said, "Hey, I think we have some developers that could do this." And I just happened to hear about it really quick and early on. Happened to be my skill set. I'm a C++ programmer, just programmer in general, CS degree. I have an MBA, and I just like jumped in and said, "This is like the pure version of like where crypto is kind of going." And so it was exciting.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'd love to move kind of into NFTs. So those have really taken off here as late. So for the person in the audience that may not understand what an NFT is, can you give a brief synopsis as to exactly what that functionality is inside of the Ravencoin network?
Yeah, absolutely. So an NFT in general stands for non-fungible token. So fungible just means can be kind of like everyone's the same. So like even though dollars are serialized, we consider them fungible, meaning $1 is kind of as good as another, right? So we can kind of swap them around. One Bitcoin's as good as another. One Ravencoin's as good as another, right? So that's fungible. Non-fungible means sort of like they're unique. They have unique properties. They don't trade the same. So you can think more of like collectibles or something where they have unique properties, where there's one of a kind things, right? So So a particular restored vehicle is restored a certain way and whatever is not necessarily the same as the original stock version or whatever. It's unique. Art is unique. And so what's happened is the tokenization, or taking a representative token. So in the case of, actually Ethereum's built for NFTs, kind of built a naming layer as well. It's not quite as good as the one on Ravencoin, but you basically get a unique name, and then you attach the art. Now, for some of it's digital art, and it's like I'm going to use in air quotes, the owner of the art, but it's digital. So digital, somebody can kind of like, take and copy the actual picture, but the person that buys it is kind of the official owner, right? Designated by the person that created it.
So that's just like a certificate.
Yes.
Of ownership.
So a good way to think of it, especially for a lot of it, is a certificate of ownership or a certificate of authenticity as well. So maybe it acts as both. So I've got the certificate, and a lot of times when you put a certificate with something, you also need to make that hard to copy, right? So you put a hologram on it, or a special seal, or it's specially printed on special paper, or something like that. The tokens automatically have that built in, kind of counterfeit proof type thing, right? Meaning the person that created the root token for their artwork studio, when they create NFTs under that, you have the provenance that the only person that could have created that is the person that owned that root token, and that's valuable. And then the person can convey things to it, like, hey, not only do you have it, you have the right to replicate it and things like that. The owner, the original owner, the copyright of the artwork could convey those things to the new owner of the token. So it's kind of taken off, and it's kind of going in different directions, different forms. One thing that's really nice is it's bringing in all the creatives into the space, and so people have made thousands, hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars on doing artwork and NFTs. Like I mentioned, ravenbay.com. It's the place where people are trading NFTs that are built on top of Ravencoin. You can purchase them with Ravencoin. We have raventrader.net, which is a way to do atomic swaps for NFTs and Raven. So that way you're not like worrying about whether you're going to get it or not. It's like it either happens or it doesn't, and you don't have to send the money to somebody. You don't have to send the Raven to somebody and hope you get your NFT. It just happens, boom, atomically. Can't. I mean, it cannot happen, but it can't happen halfway, right? So I sent my Raven, I didn't get my NFT. So that's pretty exciting. That's being used, I think, by the Raven Bay.
Okay. So when you started out Raven as an asset-based project, did you imagine something like NFTs taking off in the way it has? Or what do you think of them in general?
So in general, I don't fully understand it, but part of that is I don't have the collector mentality. I just don't collect things. And some people have given me NFTs, and I have a Laser Eyes NFT as right now as my Twitter picture. It's exciting to watch for sure. I recently signed, somebody sent me a postage paid, one of the people in the community sent me a postage paid envelope and asked me with a thing to send back the white paper, to print out the white paper and send it back. So I printed it out, sent it back. I recorded myself on a green screen signing it, sent all that back, and they created an NFT out of it, and it sold for like, I don't know, 30,000 Raven or something like that, about $3,600. So yeah, it's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's bringing in creatives. Again, I don't have a collector's mentality, so I don't collect things digital, but I think the world's shifting digital, so I kind of get it. Right, and there's some advantage to collecting digital than there is to collecting stuff you have to store on a shelf that gets dusty. So, yeah.
What about smart contracts? To what extent does the Raven support it? I mean, should the Raven be used for smart contracts?
Yeah, so Ravencoin itself directly does not support smart contracts. It has the ability to be a platform for smart contracts with like RSK or something like that. That could be done. The other option it has, which we are working towards, is right now the Raven can be hopped over to Binance Smart Chain smart contract, and then the Raven can be used as collateral. So that's kind of like
Right.
a bridge over to smart contracts. So your actual value, your actual token can be on Ravencoin, and then move it over to another smart contract platform. What we did find was missing, however, was the ability we can do that with Raven because it has what's called pay to script hash in the scripting. When we built asset support, we didn't add pay to script hash. And pay to script hash has some advantages in that you can do like 12 of 15 multi-sig and things like that. You can have larger scripts that are more complex. Same scripting language, just more complex and larger. And so we said we kind of do need pay to script hash capabilities for assets, for all these 30,000 assets that people have added. So it's been coded. It's been reviewed by developers. It's currently being reviewed by independent security evaluators, which is like a security firm. They're evaluating it. Once we get kind of all through all that and we don't find any kind of like security issues, then we'll ask the miners to adopt it and get it activated. So it is a hard fork. It's been almost a year in the making and reviewing and checking to make sure it's secure. But it is kind of our next update. Once that happens, they should be able to do the community, people developing on it should be able to hop these assets on top of other smart contract platforms.
Great.
Cool. And so one question that I would have, so one of the most famous, I guess, NTFs or NFTs that I've seen was, it wasn't a physical item where you would collect it per se, because I know that was one of the things that you were saying, but I did see a beat track by Eminem got sold for $100,000 using NFT. I don't know if it was Ravencoin's chain that was actually facilitating that, but the transfer of digital assets, such as something like that, do you see that being much more powerful than, say, if I have a collector's item that's a physical thing that would sit on my shelf, but you're actually transferring ownership of digital assets?
Yes. So I think being able to own, songs, tracks, and especially things like potentially movie characters, movie voices, movie assets that can be redeployed or reused in video games and in the virtual world and the metaverse and all of those kind of things. So these digital assets of familiar things that potentially Disney owns or other film companies.
Yeah, I was going to say Disney's going to call you right away. They will hang on to those things even past trademark and stuff of that nature.
Exactly. So I have talked to another film company that's looking at doing that, and so that should be interesting. But this ability to kind of transfer the ability for someone else who's sort of a hustler or wants to to talk to the other gaming companies and to get these characters, voices, and familiar items into the metaverse, in 3 dimensions and all of that kind of stuff. Is a great place for it. So the copyright owner of this new digital, persona or whatever can be tokenized and the copyright transferred. Yep.
Could you see some type of a partnership with, say, like the United States Patent Office or something like that? Because those are intellectual property that would be great to. Right now, you have to register that with the Patent Office, but being able to have that extra layer of security that you are the owner of that patent, would that be something that would also be useful?
Yeah, funny you should mention that. So IP Assets Technologies started by basically saying we can tokenize intellectual property rights that are owned by universities. So university grad students create something, the university owns it, and they can fractionalize that asset, right? That intellectual property, a patent, effectively, or potentially future patent, meaning it's currently a provisional patent. It hasn't been granted yet, but they could fractionalize that and then sell it to other universities. And so they're kind of sharing in, we'll call it the risk reward of whether or not, one, that patent's going to be granted, two, the patent's going to be valuable and how valuable to other companies and stuff. So yeah, absolutely, fractionalizing intellectual property is a thing already on Ravencoin.
Okay.
So more people could work on the same projects without having to worry about someone stealing their work, for example, if it's already down there.
Yes. So one of the things that can't do, or blockchains can't do, is prevent stealing in the real world. It can prove provenance, prove ownership, prove origin. But there still needs to be kind of the legal framework of kind of like you could prove that you did it first. And in fact, you could prove that you did a trademark first. I mean, blockchains in general are good at like, guaranteeing that it's like a time-stamped thing that happened back here. And you could write a document, it can be encrypted or unencrypted, put it in IPFS, put that attached to a token in Ravencoin, right? And then you could prove that document both existed, that you created it, and when, because it'll be time
But
stamped in a 1 minute block.
How hard is it to create like an asset? For example, if I imagine myself, like that would be quite hard.
Oh yeah, no. So super easy. So so just creating an asset. I mean, you can just download the software, Windows, Mac, Linux. You pop it up. You do need 501 Raven. So you can get that from T0 or Bittrex or Binance US or Binance. They all.
Or NiceHash.
NiceHash.
Yeah. NiceHash directly. Okay, great, awesome.
Yeah.
So you get your Raven. Or mine it into existence even. So you have your Raven. You open up the app. You say yes. The app has to sync. It's a blockchain. Actually, scrap that. I'm going to make it even easier. Go to mangofarmassets.com. Put in your Raven. You go in. You say, "This is the token name I want." Check. Is it available? Yep. All right. How many do I want? Put that in. Is it reissuable? Can you make more? Yes or no? And then you can go to Ravencoin. If you want to attach the document, go to Ravencoin IPFS, drag your document to it, right? Whatever it is. It can be a PDF, movie, doesn't matter, whatever. You drag it over, it gives you a string. Jump back to the wallet and put in that string. So you're attaching that document and hit issue. So, I mean, if you've done one time, it takes, probably 10, 15 seconds. If you're doing it the first time, it may take a few more minutes to do it, but it's super easy.
Okay, that's great.
And one other thing that I want to shift topics just a little bit, because the other key thing about Ravencoin is the currency aspect of it. So that's kind of built directly in on the blockchain. So was Ravencoin designed as an asset transfer blockchain? And is that your main focus, or is the main focus really the currency? Which one kind of takes precedent, or are they both kind of equally yoked?
Yeah, I would say they're equally yoked. The Raven launched first, right? And one of the reasons was it just needed to be a seeded blockchain, needed to be going, and operating and working. And that happened really, really fast. I mean, people could mine with their laptops. There was no pre-mine. So we didn't like say, hey, we're going to keep some of this or put some in the thing. It's like, these are founder funds or anything like that. There's nothing like that. We didn't sell any Raven to anybody to say, hey, we're going to build this into the first block. There's nothing like that. Bruce Fenton put it out on his Twitter. It was put out there to basically, you can start mining. The software is available, mined directly in the core. So you could just put it on a laptop, a desktop, anything, and hit mine. It went. The people at Overstock said, they actually changed some of the rules. So normally you can't use your work computer for kind of anything else. And they said, oh, you can use it for mining and keep Raven. So just start out, went really quick. It was surprisingly quick how people said, hey, this would be better mined with a graphics card, and started working on that. And so along the way, there was like this weird hybrid of like, we can do, because it was 16 algorithms that went in different orders. And so there's this weird hybrid where the graphics card were doing some of the algorithms, and then it would like switch back to the laptop or the desktop to do the other algorithms. And so it was like this. It was a little bit faster, but all that kind of switching and stuff back and forth wasn't very efficient. So it took a while before it was, not a long time, but within 4 months or so, it was mostly GPU mining. Then it was GPU mining for really the rest of the time, with those kind of hiccups that there was kind of this suspected ASIC, and it was only maybe 30% or twice as fast, something like that. It wasn't a 1000x thing like it is on a from a GPU to an ASIC on, let's say, Bitcoin. It was just twice as fast.
I think that there's been a couple of. Okay, just go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, just talking about the speed. It's a lot faster than Bitcoin. And that's one of the things Bitcoin has been trying to solve for a long time, is the speed, and that's something that Raven offers. Yeah, but we still don't see many places accepting directly other coins. When you go direct to a merchant, for example, you see we accept Bitcoin here. We see this a lot, but we don't see so much, even for coins like Ethereum. We don't tend to see it so much directly as a payment form. So do you see some coin like Raven being a viable option for this in the future? And is it something you would work more on?
Yeah, I think it's a viable option. I mean, there's already some merchant. Let's see, now payments is a merchant. So if you wanted to take it right now, you could add it onto your website just by going to now payments and kind of adding their widget and things like that. So it exists, but you're right. I think a lot of people are kind of that Bitcoin only. Problem is Bitcoin, because of its fees, isn't really very practical for kind of it's super secure and everything is great, even great probably for remittances. Lightning makes it better, but it's not great for just like direct on-chain transactions. And honestly, at some level or scale, neither is Ravencoin. As a payment mechanism right now, it worked great. But if everybody started using it and taking it, it would run into the same problems that Bitcoin has for using it to buy coffee and things like that.
Before you talked about
yeah,
before you talked about pre-mine and that Ravencoin didn't do any pre-mine, how does Ravencoin Foundation like found itself? Like,
that's a great question. So Ravencoin Foundation is not massive. It's really there to kind of monitor the ecosystem and kind of be there in case, so to hold a few things, the keys to sign the binaries, which isn't absolutely necessary, but it does help prevent fraud. So if anybody could put out binaries, a bunch of them would be basically wallet stealers. And so to have kind of we'll call it an authority or whatever. The code is the code's open source, so anybody can just download it, build it, have their own, make sure they get it from the right GitHub. But not everybody wants to build their code, but they also want to make sure that somebody isn't just giving them a fake thing that basically steals all their Raven. It's also there just to monitor the ecosystem, but it's not really in control of anything. Overstock, or rather the subsidiary of Overstock, Medici Ventures, turned from like a development site, that had developers and people and everything, to just a financial fund. And so I was being paid by Medici Ventures. The rest of the team was being paid by Medici Ventures. So when they turned into just a development fund, they said, all right, Ravencoin isn't just shares in a company like the other investments, like the investments in T0 or Bit. So they shifted it out, said it'll go into the foundation. They paid for the legal work for the foundation, gave the foundation some money that will sustain it for several years. And in fact, we'll even give some more money next year and the year after that to help sustain it. But it's not enough to hire a big staff and things like that. So a lot of Ravencoin is volunteers and fans and people that believe in the project helping out. We've done some bounties where we pay for some feature fixes or improvements or things like that. And then there's been very generous donations by miners, pools that have said we'll take a portion of the reward and send it to the foundation. The NFT, the signed white paper, for example, the funds that raised from that went to the foundation. There have been other NFT projects have said portions of it will go to the foundation. Those things have helped. We also raised some funds for security audit. This was like, I don't know, years ago, and those funds have gone up 10x. So we have a pretty good base for doing security audits and keeping the code secure. We had a legal fund originally, and then we had a very generous offer, somebody who's now on the board of the Ravencoin Foundation, an attorney that volunteered to do the legal work we needed to give Bittrex confidence that Raven was not a security, and did all the work for that. So we had raised funds for that. And then those funds are still around. They were in a multi-sig originally. Now the foundation has them, and those funds have gone up in value. So foundation's kind of being funded from kind of multiple sources, but not at a massive level, but definitely enough to protect the ecosystem.
Is the foundation a 501c3? Is it registered here in the United States?
No, it is registered in the United States. It's registered in Wyoming. We wanted to do that to kind of support the the work of Caitlin Long and what they're doing in Wyoming, and some of the rules and laws and stuff that they've done there, which is awesome stuff. But it's a 501c6, so it's a little bit more like a chamber of commerce that's like protecting the ecosystem. But unfortunately, like businesses can give and deduct it as part of their business expense, but individuals can't donate at their appreciated asset level.
Okay. And as far as, Ravencoin being a currency, that obviously is one of the main drivers for people who are mining the project. So they're really looking to, they're expending power for operating their GPUs as a way to get return on that mining. When you're using that as a currency, and you were saying that you can't really scale to something like Visa, where Visa, you're doing hundreds of thousands of transactions a second and things of that nature. How in the long term is Ravencoin going to maintain the currency aspect of the project? Are you ever going to look to partner with certain vendors? I know you talked a lot about Overstock. Would Overstock ever offer a way to pay for products using Ravencoin?
Possibly. It actually had it for a while. And it was really the changes that Shapeshift did. So I don't know if you remember, Shapeshift was kind of like the ability to kind of like swap coins. And then they were more of like a centralized, we need to know every person's name and KYC and all that kind of stuff. And now they've kind of shifted back to a DAO. So, that pipeline that we built was built as part of a hackathon project in Overstock. So it kind of shifted to having to basically send information, KYC information from Overstock customers, and Overstock's not willing to do that. But that's changed back. I'm not there anymore, so that would really be up to them. I think it would be fantastic. It'd be great. The other currency part of it is it does have what's source, which is the mining, and a sink, which is the creating of assets. So that does require Raven. So that is a demand that exists, right? So there's a small amount of fees for transferring. Transfer just doesn't cost very much. So a small amount of fees, so you do need that, but you also need to create your assets. You need to, and those Raven are burned. So when you create an asset, 500 Raven is burned, taken out of circulation. It's sent visibly to a burn address. You can see it. You can see all the, if you go to the Cryptoscope, raven.cryptoscope.io, shows all the Raven that's been burned for assets, for restricted assets, which is a different kind of asset, for security tokens, for sub assets and tags, and for unique assets or NFTs. And you can see how much is burned for each.
So those Raven coins should be given to miners as a reward.
What's that? The
burnt Raven should be given to the miners.
And speaking of miners, so we've already seen Raven's hash rate triple since August. So let's talk a little bit about mining. So can you tell us about Raven's proof of work model? And is it true that the difficulty adjusts every block?
That is correct. So originally it was X16R. I mentioned this earlier, but originally X16R, then X16R V2. While we were at X16R, we had this issue where things like algorithms that select the most profitable coin, for example, of the altcoins, we're considered one of the altcoins, that they would find Raven and they'd say, oh, this is really profitable. So the algorithms would just move all the hash there, and it would and they'd mine really fast, right? Get a lot of Raven. And then the difficulty was on the same block schedule as Bitcoin, which was 2016 blocks. And then the difficulty would adjust, and it would get a lot harder because there were so many miners, and it does a look back of and how fast blocks. We wanted it 1 minute, so it retargets, and then it got really hard. And all these algorithms, some people are just mining Raven, they're going along, but the algorithmic ones that said, hey, it's not as profitable now, they all bailed. And so what should happen is every at 2016 blocks, that's in Bitcoin, it's about 2 weeks. In Ravencoin, because we have faster blocks, it was 1.4 days. So it should, about every 1.4 days, adjust this algorithm. So it's going along, and it should tweak it just a little bit. In 1.4 days, tweak it a little bit. But with this sloshing of mining power on and off, it was just and it was getting worse. It was like this forcing oscillating function where it got to the point where the slow periods were taking like 3.5 days, and the other point was taking a quarter of a day or 3/4 of a day. It was just, everybody was mining it
was just so
and
great.
so it was a problem. So we looked at different ways to solve this, and there was dark gravity well DGW, which is what we used, a modified version of that. And there's different ones that other coins had used for the same reason, because it had killed off some coins where it just like everybody got mined it really, really fast, and then there was never enough mining power to get it past to the next target date. I don't think we were in that kind of dire straits, but that's a risk. And so anyway, we swapped out the mining algorithm, so now it does retarget every block, adjust the difficulty every block, which has worked great. It has some limits. Some won't retarget more than a certain percentage each block, but it's really, really done well since then. It if people slosh on and off, it might take 2 minutes to retarget, and then 1.5, and it resequences back to the gets pretty quick back to the target 1 minute. But it also does a look back. It's looking back quite a ways and stuff, but it's worked great.
Okay, Raven will experience its first halving in January. It's likely the same time that Ethereum miners will switch to Raven. How do you see this affecting Raven?
So I think it's great. Just the way mining works is if too many people get on and the price doesn't go up, then some people will drop back off. If too many people get on and the price goes up, which is kind of what we're hoping, then it continues that way. And it just re-ratchets up the price. You get less Raven, but the price has gone up, so you get the amount. It's the most profitable, and that's what we hope happens.
Do you think that more miners mean more demand, or more of the, or there will be more of a sell pressure?
It depends. That's a good question. Well, there can't be more sell pressure because the same amount of Ravens coming out, right? So, actually, half as much Ravens coming out.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's gonna lower the sell pressure. All the Raven goes to miners anyway. So unless the characteristics of the particular miners coming in have a different characteristic of sell pressure, meaning they're more like give me money, I'm going to sell it for my electricity, as opposed to, look, I understand the importance and ramifications of what and the capabilities of Raven is going to be a future project, which we have a lot of those miners that are just, they understand, right? They get it, they're holding it, they know it's going to be a bigger thing. It kind of, so there's the mix of types of miners. The amount of Raven coming out doesn't double if the miners double. It stays in fact exactly the same. And in fact, if it's already halved, right, from 5,000 to 2,500, that halving, it's going to be half as much sell pressure no matter how many miners get on there.
So when Ethereum stops being mined, a lot of things are going to change for sure.
Yeah, I think
many
so.
miners are going to move their hash rates to other places. So let's say you get a lot more hash rate on the Raven.
Yep.
Do you think this can be beneficial, or do you think this can also be a security threat in some ways, or will it make it more secure?
I think it's beneficial. The security threat doesn't worry me too much. I mean, if there's too much concentration of mining power at one mining pool, that's somewhat of a threat. The more mining hash power isn't as much of a security threat. One of the things that we did do intentionally, because we could have potentially, I mean, especially I was at this conference just literally yesterday, and they're talking about like trillions of dollars worth of assets and stuff being tokenized on these platforms, Ravencoin being one of them. And so you have this potential for like, I mean, the project's a $1 billion project, $1 billion market cap. But if it has trillions of dollars worth of assets, you say, well, that's a little scary. Like, is somebody going to attack it for those assets? There's kind of two answers to that. One, most of these are securities. So if you steal securities or whatever, they pretty much have your name and stuff like that. So that's not too much of a problem. But the other problem is, like, if they did attack it, because maybe it was, these tokens are worth gold and they're trying to get a lot of gold tokens or something like that. Ravencoin has a thing called NLR, no long reorg. And we did it for this reason, that we could have more assets on there than the chain security. And so after 60 blocks, it doesn't reorg. And that basically solves that problem. So you do want to wait 60 blocks, but then you're kind of safe from that kind of like jumping back, rolling back the chain after 60 blocks. You can't do it. So even if there's all that mining hash power, the code itself won't allow it.
That's a pretty cool feature.
That's 1 hour, right? 60 block is 1 hour.
Oh yeah, 60 blocks. Yeah, 1 hour. Yep, that's right.
Is there any plans for Raven to change consensus from proof of work over to proof of stake as Ethereum did?
Right now, there's no plans for that. I'm not going to rule out the future. I probably won't be around in the long future when it's really worth something. But yeah, no current plans. It is a possibility. One of the big advantages to proof of work is a very, very, very fair distribution mechanism. More fair than doing like airdrops and then doing proof of stake or selling it, which a lot of times puts becomes an illegal security offering. Tezos kind of has that problem where you've kind of sold in EOS and some others where they sold the tokens, and so they it's kind of in the US it's an illegal security offering.
So want to be mindful of time. We got about 4 minutes left in the broadcast here real quick. So I want to move over into Q&A real quick. So we got some questions from the audience that have come in over the course of the broadcast. So Tron, this one's for you. Do you foresee changing the cost of minting an asset/token in the future? At the current worth, it's great. But if Raven's price were to moon, would it be quite expensive and a barrier to entry?
Yeah, that is a possibility. I mean, if it really becomes the problem, then that's a possibility. There's a step in between there though, and one of the steps in between there is like it's 500 Raven for a root asset, but there's no reason you have to have a root asset. Root asset is almost like owning .com or .io or something like that. I mean, it's really a root thing. So if someone wanted to create an asset, a root asset, and then issue tokens under that with sub assets, then it's 5 times less expensive to create those. And so if it gets really expensive for the 500, people could set up a business to kind of sell the sub assets under a root asset. And then once that happens, a sub asset actually becomes its own root asset or becomes its own parent asset or has all the properties of a root asset where you can create sub assets under that. So I'm not too concerned about that currently, but if it gets really high, there's no reason it couldn't be changed. It just can't be changed by a whim, right?
Okay.
It would require a hard fork, but it's definitely changeable if that becomes like the dominant problem that Ravencoin has and the community says, yeah, we need to do this. It's not impossible.
Okay. So one other question for you. What coin would you see as your main rival in the crypto space?
Wow. So I would maybe say several for different aspects. So Ravencoin does a lot of different things. Ethereum, because it's kind of well known for the ERC20, right? It's subpar, right? It's expensive to transfer. It's not built in. It doesn't have a unique name, so it's not as good. But it's the one everybody knows, right? So people are like, oh, I'm just going to create one of these ERC20s. But I would say just because of its, that's what everybody knows, and to rise above that, to tell everybody, hey, you got a better solution, I would put it as the main rival for the tokenization portion of it. Yeah, as far as being like maybe the zeitgeist of being like an individual, like, hey, this is the future, and it's sort of a meme kind of thing. I mean, Dogecoin on the has risen up to up the ranks, which is kind of fun. But I mean, to push back against just sort of like Wall Street kind of thing, Ravencoin has that same kind of community power, and so I think,
okay,
on the currency side, maybe something like that.
Sure. Okay. And then so our last question that we have here is actually for Marco. What advice would you give to NiceHash miners who just switched to mining the Ravencoin algorithm, KawPow?
I think that not to use the same overclocks as for Ethereum. there might be some differences. Maybe to watch out for hash rate. There won't be like, for example, 3070 won't hash at 60 mega hashes. It will be a bit lower. I think that the guessing is a bit harder. Hashing is a bit harder. And maybe to mine with NiceHash. I think that would be a good advice.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Tron, want to thank you for joining us here today for this episode of Nice Talk. And we look forward to seeing all the great things that Ravencoin does over the coming months and years. And we'd love to have you back another time. So I'm actually going to transition over here real quick. So wanted to do a little outro here. So if you haven't tried mining before, obviously NiceHash is the easiest way to get started. It's good. Just go to nicehash.com and try our quick miner or our NiceHash miner, where you can earn money from your PC. Ravencoin's their algorithm, KawPow, is a supported algorithm. So if you want to give mining Ravencoin a go, you can sign up today. And if you're not into mining, you can still invest in Ravencoin on NiceHash exchange. And if you got, and that's all the time that we got for you today, folks. We hope you enjoyed the show hearing all about Ravencoin. Make sure to tune in and join us next month on the 29th of October. We'll be discussing the Ergo project with its team. It's a very interesting project with multiple use cases. And make sure you leave a comment in today's show. We'd love to hear your feedback. And thank you for joining us today. And we will see you guys in the next one.